Criticism is never harmless. Every word aimed at you is either a dagger disguised as advice or a test of your weakness. In this video, I will show you how to turn every insult, judgment, and whisper into a weapon of control, a shield of dominance, and a throne of unshakable power. The masses fear judgment because they crave acceptance. But the ruler, he listens to criticism with the ear of a hunter. He does not flinch, he calculates. Behind every reproach is either a rival probing for weakness or a subordinate testing boundaries. You, if you are to wield power, must understanding. Criticism is not pain, it is information. It is leverage. It is a mirror not of yourself, but of the world that dares to evaluate you. In this guide, I will not teach you to avoid criticism. I will teach you to exploit it. Just as poison can be converted into medicine, so too can contempt be transmuted into dominance. Let us begin. Look closely at the one who criticizes you. Not their words, but their eyes. What do they want? Respect, power, control. You see, criticism is never just about you. It's a chess movie disguised as honesty, and only the foolish take it at face value. Let me tell you a truth few dare to speaking. Every critic is a strategist in disguise. Some are enemies, cloaked in the language of concern. Others are allies, temporarily tempted by the thrill of superiority. And then there are the silent ones, the most dangerous of all, who study you, judge you, and say nothing. But in silence, they plan. Do you think Caesar was stabbed merely because of ambition? No. His downfall was whispered through criticisms long before the daggers struck. Each senator who praised him by day dissected him by night. You must learn to read such dissection. When someone points out your flaw, ask, what does this person gain if I shrink? Most people are not motivated by truth. They're motivated by power, envy, and fear. A subordinate who critiques your leadership may crave your throne. A friend who questions your decision may resent your growth. Even well-meaning family may undermine you, not out of malice, but because your success highlights their stagnation. So, what should you do? You do not ignore criticism. You interrogate it. You don't react with emotion. You dissect the delivery. Is it public or private? Aggressive or subtle? Laced with envy or with veiled admiration? Because here's the gaming: every criticism carries a signal. And if you train yourself to decode that signal, you'll know exactly how much leverage your opponent has or lacks. This is what most fail to grasp. They think criticism is a moment. But in power, it is a message. And often, it is a test. They want to see if you flinch, if you collapse, if you overreact. That tells them your armor is thin, and your mind is easily manipulated. Have you ever watched someone handle criticism with cold poise? No excuses, no defensive flailing, just the stare at the silenced, the slow, deliberate nod. That is not passivity. That is control. Because in that moment, they are analyzing, not reacting. Here's a tactic you must remember. Mirror the criticism, don't absorb it. When someone strikes, you respond, not with apology, but with precision. For example, a colleague says, "You don't seem very collaborative." Most would shrink or explain. But a strategic mind replies, "Interesting. And what gave you that impression?" Now, the burden shifts. They must reveal their position, their bias, their agenda. And you gather data while remaining unscathed. Psychologically, this does two things. It unsettles the critic. They lose dominance. It signals to any observer, you are composed, alert, and not easily manipulated. In Renaissance courts, this was everything. Kings were criticized not by words, but by gestures, tones, and arrangements. A noble delaying a bow by 2 seconds was sending a message. A misplaced smile could spark exile or death. Modern criticism is no different. It is ritual warfare. Subtle, layered, and personal. And the wise do not react to the blade, they study the hand that holds it. You might ask her, what about genuine feedback? Even that is a test. You must still ask, why now? Why in this way? A loyal ally will correct you privately, respectfully, and with intent to uplift. But many cloak their strikes in the name of helpfulness. Do not be deceived by soft words. The most effective assassins use silk, not steel. And remember, the tone reveals more than the content. A smirk, a pause, a glance to the audience before delivering the critique. That's not feedback, that's theater. And if it's theater, then you are the stage. Now, you might feel paranoid. Good. Paranoia is not weakness when guided by reason. It is preparation. Your job is not to trust every critic. Your job is to determining, is this an attack or an opportunity? Because sometimes criticism can be used to your advantage. But that we will uncover later. For now, understand this: every time someone challenges you, they expose something, not about you, but about themselves. Their intent, their fear, their reach. The one who dares to judge you has already revealed a vulnerability. They care enough to invest energy in your downfall. Exploit that. Ask yourself, who benefits from this critique? Who is watching? And how do I turn this into power? Because in this game of perception, the one who sees before reacting wins. And now that you see them for what they are, strategists in disguise, let's move to the next truth. Perception of strength is stronger than truth. And once you master that, criticism won't just stop hurting. It will start serving. Do you want to be powerful? Then abandon your obsession with truth. Because in the theater of power, truth is fragile. Perception is everything. The world does not reward the honest. It rewards the convincing. Strength, whether real or not, is only useful when others believe it. So I ask you, do you want to be strong? Or do you want to look strong? Because history remembers the latter far more often than the former. Consider Alexander, a man with no divine lineage, yet he carried himself like a god. He walked with the posture of invincibility. He spoke as if victory was a law of nature. And because he appeared unstoppable, nations surrendered before swords were drawn. Now, ask yourself, how many battles in your own life are lost before they begin simply because you looked unsure? Understand this: when people see cracks in your armor, they won't mend them. They will crawl inside. Your perceived weakness gives birth to the courage of your enemies. Not your actual weakness, your perceived one. Most of your rivals don't know your full capacity. They only know what you allow them to see. And every time you react emotionally to criticism, you confirm their suspicions. You show them you're pierced by words. And in the hierarchy of control, he who bleeds from language is never king. Have you ever seen someone defend themselves nervously? Fumbling with justifications, rushing to clarify, overcorrecting with apologies. They may be innocent. But do they seem powerful? No, they seem cornered. They seem guilty. Even when they're not, and guilt, in the eyes of power, is weakness. So what do? You craft perception deliberately. You develop what I call the architecture of dominance. It begins not with facts but with frame. Let me give you a principle. Never explain what you can command. When a leader explains too much, he lowers himself to the level of those demanding answers. But when he sets a tone, a presence, a commanding silence, he transcends the question entirely. That is power. Look at how ancient emperors ruled. They didn't flood their courts with justifications. They cloaked decisions in mystery. They were seen as wise because they spoke little, not because they always knew best. And the less they spoke, the more others projected greatness onto them. Your strength is not just what you possess. It is what others believe you can unleash. This is why lions rarely roar. They don't need to. The threat is implied. You too must learn the art of implied power. When someone challenges you, don't scramble for defense. Pause. Hold their gaze longer than is comfortable. Speak slowly. If at all, let them feel the pressure of their own question bouncing back at them. Because here's the psychological truth: most people judge you not by your response, but by your composure. They don't care if you're right. They care if you seem unshaken. Control your face. Control your tone. Control the silence. That is your battleground. Because once they see you're immune to judgment, you become untouchable. Now, I must warn you, this path is not about morality. It's about mastery. If you crave to be liked, stop watching now. But if you crave to be respected, even feared, listen closely. Because here's where it gets dangerous. Once you control how others perceive you, you can manipulate their behavior without force. You can lead, dominate, even deceive, without ever raising your voice. Why? Because people follow confidence, not competence. And in the war of social survival, certainty always wins over truth. But this demands discipline. You must train yourself to appear composed when chaos surrounds you, to seem powerful when you're unsure, to walk as if you own the room, even if the floor beneath you is cracking. This is not deception. This is strategy. Because perception shapes reality. If others see you as dominant, they adjust their behavior as if you are. Their submission becomes real, even if your strength is not. So the next time you face criticism, do not reach for proof. Reach for poise. Do not chase facts. Project certainty. And always remember, people would rather follow a confident liar than a timid truth teller. Because in the end, power is not about what you are. It's about what they believe you are. Now, what happens when the critic becomes the storyteller? When they begin rewriting your reputation before you even respond. That is where the true war begins. And in the next segment, I will teach you how to seize the narrative before they do. Because he who controls the story controls everything. He who tells the story rules the crowd. Understand this before it's too late. In every conflict, every criticism, every public interaction, someone will define the narrative. And if it's not you, it will be them. Think of power as a theater. The audience doesn't care what's true. They care what looks true, what sounds believable, what spreads easily. And nothing spreads faster than a well-told lie in the absence of your voice. So ask yourself, who is shaping the version of you that the world sees? Because if you're not the author of your reputation, you're the victim of someone else's pen. Now, most people respond to criticism like frightened animals. They defend, they plead, they explain. And in doing so, they legitimize the accusation. Even an untrue rumor gains power the moment you try to disprove it. But the cunning mind knows better. You don't chase the arrows. You raise a wall before they're fired. Let me tell you about the Borgias. They ruled not by charm, but by controlling perception. Cesare Borgia, one of the most ruthless tacticians in history, once faced whispers of betrayal among his allies. He didn't explain himself. He didn't deny the whispers. He staged a public feast and invited every suspected traitor. By the end of the night, the rumors had vanished. Why? Because 2 guests disappeared, and no one ever asked again. He understood silence can be louder than words and fear, more persuasive than truth. You don't always need to argue. Sometimes you only need to act in a way that redefines the conversation. Let's bring it to your life. Someone calls you arrogant. Don't deny it. Refocus the frame. Say, I prefer clarity over comfort. Now they're not criticizing arrogance. They're facing confidence. Someone questions your decisions. Don't explain every step. Reframe the position. Say, I make the calls others are afraid to. Now, you're not reckless. You're decisive. Do you see the shift? It's not about disproving them. It's about dominating the lens through which you are seen. Psychologically, humans cling to the first version of a story they hear. It's called the primacy effect. So if your enemy speaks first, you will forever be playing catch-up, was the lie. But if you speak first, even a distorted version of yourself becomes the truth they accept. You must become the architect of your own myth. And like any good architect, you do not wait for the storm, you build before the rain. In practical terms, anticipate the attacks. If you're rising in power, expect envy. If you're silent, expect rumors. If you're bold, expect misinterpretation. So get ahead of it. Address potential criticism in ways that serve your image. Control the conversation, not by suppressing it, but by redirecting it. This is why rulers throughout history have used symbols, crowns, phrases, public rituals. Not because they needed them, but because others did. Symbols speak louder than words, and narratives are shaped by what people feel, not just what they hear. The same applies to your reputation, your tone, your timing, your posture when criticized. These are not reactions. They are tools. You might ask, but what if I have made real mistakes? Good, because every mistake is a blank page, and you decide whether it becomes a scandal or a story of strength. When Julius Caesar returned from Gaul, drenched in blood and controversy, he didn't beg for understanding. He wrote his own history, Commentary de Bello Gallico, glorifying his conquests, justifying his aggression. The Senate protested, the people cheered. Who won? The man who wrote first. And so must you, because the truth is this: most reputations are not destroyed by actions, but by interpretations. And those interpretations are controlled by those who speak louder, sooner, and smarter. So speak early, speak decisively, speak with a design. Let every statement you make, every correction you issue, every word you publish, be a move on the board, not a cry for mercy. Let your critics try to catch up to your version of events, because when they respond to you, they enter your frame. And once they're there, you own the narrative. Now, what if you could do more than just protect your image? What if you could use their attacks, not just to survive, but to rise? In the next segment, we'll explore the most dangerous move of all, turning criticism into social leverage. Because survival is not enough. Domination is the endgame. Criticism is not the enemy. It is a gift if you know how to unwrap it. Most people hear an insult and feel shame. But the strategic mind hears an opportunity. Because what others say about you, especially when they say it publicly, creates tension. And tension can be molded into power. If you can master the art of turning an attack into advantage, you will rise not despite resistance, but because of it. Let me explain. Every insult is a spark. If you try to put it out with emotion, tears, rage, defense, you feed the fire. But if you harness it, you set the stage alight, and stand in the center as it burns around you. Consider Napoleon, small in stature, mocked by opponents, called unstable, arrogant, a tyrant. What did he do? He absorbed their insults and amplified them. He marched with grandeur, wore symbols of power, demanded loyalty that bordered on worship. He embraced the villain role so thoroughly. His enemies began to fear the very traits they mocked. They gave him his legend, and he used it to take a continent. You must understand this. Criticism creates curiosity. When someone attacks your character, people pay attention. They want to know, who is this person drawing so much hatred, so much heat? If you appear composed, intelligent, and unbothered in that moment, the audience begins to suspecting, perhaps this person is not the villain, but the threat the system fears. And threats are magnetic. In every power dynamic, the persecuted figure can become the symbol of rebellion. Use this. Let your critic paint you as bold, unrelenting, too confident. Let them exaggerate. Then prove you're exactly that, but smarter. Here's how. Step 1. Spotlight the attack. Don't hide from the insult. Echo it. Repeat it publicly, with calm precision. This reframes you as fearless and reframes them as obsessed. They say, I'm too blunt. I say, I speak what others only dare to whisper. Now the crowd leans toward you. Why? Because you seem unbreakable. Because you take the blow and turn into a platform. Step 2. Divide your audience. When you're criticized, don't seek universal approval. Seek polarization. Those who hate you will speak, but those who admire your defiance will begin to defend you. And once people start defending you, they become emotionally invested in your survival. This is how leaders rise, not by pleasing all, but by standing so firmly, others feel compelled to stand beside them. You turn critics into recruiting agents. They shout your name and draw attention to your cause. Step 3. Reframe the insult as evidence of power. They call you manipulative. Smile. Say, it's strange how those who lose control always accuse others of having too much of it. They say you're arrogant. Shrug. Confidence is only a crime to the insecure. With every word, you shift perception. You don't fight their frame. You replace it. Understand the psychology behind this. People admire those who rise under pressure, not those who avoid it. So when criticism comes, perform under it. Let your posture harden. Let your wit sharpen. Let your story become richer. Because pressure makes most people small, but if you grow under it, you become myth. Look at any revolutionary, any founder, any iconic figure. They were all attacked, and yet they endured. Why? Because they knew public attack is a spotlight, and under a spotlight, legends are born. But here's the warning: you can only weaponize criticism if you remain in control. The moment you react emotionally, snap, rant, complain, you surrender the narrative. Control the tone, control the language, control the moment. Let the critic swing wildly, and you stand still. Let their cars become your contrast. In their noise, you create presence. In their weakness, you demonstrate strength. And slowly the crowd begins to turn. They stop listening to the attacker. They start watching you. The target. The storm. The figure who remains untouched. And in time, they begin to follow. Now, what happens after you've controlled perception, framed the insult, and turned the crowd? Do you punish? Do you forgive? Do you strike or smile? That choice will define your next move. And in the final keynote, we'll explore the most powerful technique of all: punish selectively, forgive publicly. Because massage in the hands of a master becomes the sharpest blade of all. Control does not require chains, only perception. They believe they act freely. They don't realize you've already shaped their options, their emotions, their choices. That is mastery. You don't frame, you don't demand, you guide. By owning the narrative, commanding the silence, and weaponizing their attacks, you make them dance while thinking they lead. The most effective control is invisible, because what is unseen cannot be resisted. So ask yourself, how much of your life is yours? And how much was crafted by others? Now you know the difference. Now you hold the blueprint. But power is not gained by watching. It is gained by applying. So if this sharpened your mind, prove it. Comment your reflections below. Expose what others tried to use against you, and how you'll turn it to your advantage. Subscribe if you desire more of these dark mechanisms of power, and share this with those who think control only belongs to the loud. The real rulers move in silence, and now you can join them.